Yo, what's up everybody? Today I want to talk about one of the best Ranger endgame builds for Path of Exile 2's new Abyssal League. And it's not a lightning build. This is an ice shatter build. It can take on tier 15 maps easily. You'll be breezing through tier 15 maps very fast with this. It can take on the endgame bosses. Because you're freezing and then shattering the whole screen, when you have these abyssals with just tons and tons of monsters pouring out, with like rares and magic monsters, you just freeze them. You just freeze them and then you shatter them. And there's this chain and the whole screen just goes and you just move on to the next pack. It's really fun to play. It's super strong. So let's get into it. We'll get into the mechanics of how the build works. We'll go into the gameplay, single target, and then more AoE, like clearing mats and stuff. And then we'll get into the gems, the passive tree, the gear, and all that stuff. Okay, so first let's talk about the mechanics that make this so good for endgame. So on our main ability is Ice Shot. This is our main clearing ability. Ice Shot is a single target ability that deals cold damage and applies chill, which freezes enemies in the end, right? So this is our main ability, and what we do with it is first we have the Ricochet. The Ricochet support gem is first it lets you pierce all targets, and then modifiers that give you an additional projectile stop giving you an additional projectile, and instead chain an additional time from terrain per projectile they would have gained. So instead of, when you have like 3 additional projectiles, you would fire out like a cone, 3 in like a scatter shot kind of thing. But instead you just fire 1 projectile. So, it's just a single arrow, right? But that arrow will then start chaining around the screen. We combine that with Nova projectiles, which means we now shoot 4 additional projectiles and they fire in a circle for a little bit less damage. So basically those together mean when we hit our enemy, the arrows just fly out in all directions and just ping around all the way. So if you've got a big pack of abyssal mobs, they just get absolutely shredded. If you're in like a corridor, everything gets shredded. If you're doing like a ritual where the circle starts small, it's like small, everything just melts. This is incredible. The more mobs you have, the stronger this is. So that's the main way we're doing our AoE damage. We also have, ice-tipped arrows. We have freezing salvo, which is a really good AoE for just freezing everything. That's like our main AoE. And then when it comes to single target, we freeze our enemy first with all of the abilities, we've mentioned. We have ice-tipped arrows. We have the freezing salvo. So we have ways to freeze enemies. And then we use snipe. Snipe this is just you hold it down and then if you time it, you do a ton of damage and you shatter the enemies for massive amounts of damage on bosses. On map bosses, on the pinnacles, things like that. It just melts them. Okay, so let's go through the gems in detail. I've got the full build guide as well. If you'd rather look at the build guide, that'll be linked down below. If you'd rather go through this in your own time, there's the full build guide and you can come down and you've got the leveling version and then you've got the tier 15 endgame version, which we're going to be talking about now. You can use this from the start. There's no weird requirements you have to hit before you switch over. Just as soon as you get to endgame, move over to this, and the better your gear gets, the higher level you get, the more, passive points you get, you'll easily get into tier 15. So yeah, that's all there, but let's go in game to show it in detail. So I'm going to talk through these quite a bit so we can, if you haven't played this sort of build before, hopefully you get a better understanding of how it works. So we've spoken a little bit about Ice Shot. This is our main ability. This is our main, the thing you'll be casting the most, the thing you'll be using the most. So we go for rapid attacks, 25% attack speed. If you played in the past, this was called martial tempo. Then we have elemental armament 2, which is 25% more elemental attack. There are like rank 3 versions of some of these abilities, but usually they come with a downside. So it'll be like you gain extra attack, but there's this downside, like you lose damage. So for most of it, we're using the rank 2 versions. So that's how we use Ice Shot. This is how we set it up for clearing. Nova projectiles, which I mentioned at the start, and then Ricochet 3, which we mentioned at the start. If you don't have Ricochet and you just have Nova projectiles, I'll show you what happens. You just shoot around you, which is terrible. It's really, really bad. You don't want to be playing like that. It's really bad for clearing because the arrows are on you, not on the enemies in the big packs of mobs. And we're not playing like a melee, so we're not in the pack of enemies. So yeah, you want to run both of these. Okay, then we want ice-tipped arrows. Ice-tipped arrows is like a buff. You use it and then you cast the next thing. So this would buff your next arrow attacks. So you would use this and then you would use Ice Shot. So with this, we go for Frozen Spite, which means that it triggers ice fragments on defeating frozen enemies. We have Short Fuse, so the ice fragments go off faster. And then we have cooldown recovery, so that we get this faster. And then cold exposure to deal cold exposure to the enemies. Now, the way this works is your arrow attacks will then drop these like ice shards on the ground and they'll pop. So this is really, really nice for big packs of enemies. Then we have Freezing Salvo. Again, amazing for AoE damage. It's really powerful and it deals a lot of freeze buildup. For this, we would go for Ice Bite, 25% cold damage on freezing an enemy. We go for Elemental Armament, 25% damage. We go for Freeze for 50% more freeze buildup. And then Hourglass, which puts it on a 10-second cooldown. It gives it 30% more damage. Now, there are 2 times I would use this. One is on an opener. So, you walk up to Abyss and there's 30 mobs on screen. You open with this and it does tons of damage and everything will just be frozen. The second way would be if you're getting pushed into the corner. If like you open a breach and they just rush you and they're coming from all directions, use this. If you're, just getting pushed into a corner, maybe all the enemies are higher level than you and you can't quite get them down, you use this and you just pop it like this and it just melts everything. And if it doesn't defeat them, it should freeze them. So it's really, really good. Then we go on to Barrage. Barrage is similar to Ice Tipped Arrows in that it's a buff. What it does is it will use frenzy charges to empower the next attack to deal more. So if you to use Barrage and then use Ice Tipped Arrows, you do 2. If we had frenzy charges, we could do 3, 4, 5, depending on how many frenzy charges we have. You can then use Perpetual Charge to this 25% chance to not remove the charge but still consume them. So say you had 3 charges, you'd go Barrage, Ice Shot, you'd get like 5 shots and you would still have the charges so you could do it again. So really, really nice. Then we go for Snipe. This is our single target boss destroyer. It just melts frozen enemies. You can see it does extra when it hits a frozen enemy and it consumes the freeze. We go for Window of Opportunity, releasing support skills with perfect timing, grants deflection rating. Support skills have 35% perfect timing window, but 35% more damage. All that means is when you use this, there's like this glimmer. You see the flicker? When he glows, that's like the window of opportunity. If you hit that, the damage is just wild. So just try and practice really in your hideout. Just try and practice hitting that. You're going to miss it a lot at the start, but when you hit it, the damage is so high. So yeah, that's how it works. Another tip I would give you is if you have like a mob, like a big mob, like a boss, don't aim for its head or its chest, aim for its feet. This misses, but it doesn't miss. You have to kind of hit the hitbox. So aim for the feet. So if this was your mob, you wouldn't aim here, you would aim here. That would be probably the tip I'd give you. Aim for the feet, try and hit the sweet spot, and bosses would just shower them. With this, we'd go for the Window of Opportunity. We'd go for Projectile Acceleration 3 for tons more damage. Elemental Armament, 25% more damage. And then this reduces the area of effect, but gives 30% more damage. We're not using this on packs of mobs. We're just using it on bosses. So, I mean, you could also use it on like really tanky elites. It definitely works there. But the problem is you have to stand still and do this. Not many monsters let you stand still for 3 seconds, so it's good on bosses when they're already frozen. Okay, then we have Tornado. Tornado is just like another buff, really. You drop it like this, and then when you hit into it, they spread out from the tornado. So it's really nice for like giving us more AoE clear. It's good for bosses for adding more damage into the mix. Overabundance 2, it gives us 2 tornadoes instead of 1, like you just saw there. It's normally just 1. Then we can go for Prolonged Duration, so they last a really long time. And then Efficiency, so they have less mana cost. You'll already see like mana gets chomped out when we start throwing things like this down. Let's talk about the spirit abilities, the persistent buffs. Herald of Ice is kind of a no-brainer. When we pop the freeze, we do loads and loads of damage. So shattering an enemy deals an icy, big pop of damage. For that, we go for Frozen Spite to trigger more ice fragments. We go for 25% damage with Elemental Armament 2. Overreach, which gives us the 40% increased area of effect. Less accuracy just means that we have a bigger area for that to go off. And then Longshot 2, so 35% more attack damage to enemies further away. And like most of this is going to be happening at the edge of your screen. You're going to be shooting into an abyss or into a pack of mobs. So it does work really, really well. Then Wind Dancer. I don't have any buffs in this just because I'm absolutely capped on my spirit. Spirit just is really tight. You can get spirit amulets or spirit. You can get spirit on your chest piece or spirit on your amulet. So you can get more spirit, and I'll talk about some other things you can do, but I run it really, really low, so I have nothing in Wind Dancer. And then I'll just bring this one up. We have Combat Frenzy. Combat Frenzy is how we generate our frenzy charges, which we use in Barrage. So in a frenzy charge when you freeze an enemy every 6 seconds. So really, really easy. And then we use Charge Profusion, so you have a 30% chance to get an additional charge. So yeah, that's the build. If you do want to run it with extra spirit, you could get Ghost Dance. That would work pretty well. Or you can always use the rower. I tried the rower for a little bit, and it is fun. That's where you ride the big mount, and all of our abilities work except the snipe. So if you're just clearing maps, the rower works really, really, really well. Unless you're doing like map bosses or you want to be getting off and using snipe more, the rower works really well. And I used it for a little bit and I'm thinking about getting it again. So you could definitely consider trying that. But yeah, that's the build. That's all the gems. Now let's talk about the passive tree. Okay, so ascendancies and passive tree. I'm level 84 right now. So I can show you up to here and then I'll show you where I'm going to go from here. And it'll all be in the build guide as well if you want to look at that. So on the ascendancy itself, this is what I would do. First, I would go for Gathering Winds, which gives you Tailwind. Tailwind is, I think, it's like movement speed, attack speed. It's really good. It's like movement speed, skill speed, and evasion, which just keeps stacking until you get hit. Amazing, amazing, really, really good ability. Then I would come down to here and get Point Blank. 20% more damage to enemies is incredible. And then we go down to here and we get Endless Munitions. Skills fire additional projectile. And you'll notice we only fire one projectile. That's because of the Ricochet 3 gem we have, which means instead of firing that additional projectile, that is another chance. That is, wait, not chance, it's another chain. It's another time our arrows will chain, which means they're just darting around like pinballs every time we hit an enemy. The next place I'm going to go is Wind Ward, 3% less damage per Tailwind. You can try Cold Shots. It's pretty good, but you kind of got to build into mark and you got to build in like in your skill tree into marked enemies. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was worth what you give up, but you can try it. I'm personally going to go into Wind Ward when I hit my 4th ascendancy. Okay, so let's talk about where we do this. So we come along here, we get the projectile speed, attack speed, dexterity, we get pierce an enemy, projectile damage. We come down and we get the quiver. 20% bonuses gained from the quiver, and you'll see why important that is when we talk about gearing. We get it again up here as well. There's another quiver section somewhere. Up here, yeah. 20% increased bonuses from quiver. So we take all of the quiver bonuses. We take this down here, which gives us some elemental damage. Damage penetrates elemental resistances. We grab this here for movement speed and evasion. We grab more elemental here, elemental damage. We come along here for more damage, 25% damage. We wrap down to here and get movement speed and skill speed. Skill speed is basically attack speed. We come down to here and we get the 35% freeze buildup. That's kind of how I would start. You come down here, and you get freeze buildup. Then you would come up to here and you would get this Herald buff. 40% increased cold damage while affected by Herald of Ice is amazing. Then I would come to here and I wouldn't get the crit cluster straight away. I'd get the gem slot and then I'd come along here. This is kind of like the dex attack speed line. You come up to here, you get evasion and 8% increased dex. You get 25 dex in the middle. And then you get to the end here, 1% increased attack speed per 25 dex. You get this next quiver bonus here, 20% bonuses from your equipped quiver. Then you would come up to here and you get damage penetrates cold resistance. Come up again and you get this cluster here, movement speed, projectile damage. And you saw with the support gem, the more projectile speed we have, that's more damage as well on a snipe, I think. Coming down into here, attack speed and strength. Then you want to run up along here, another gem slot. And now we go crit. Once you've done this, you start dumping into crit. So we've got this big crit cluster here, crit damage, crit chance, all this crit stuff. And then we can come back into here and fill out this entire crit cluster as well. That's going to be really, really good as we come into the crits. Now, once you've done that, I personally am going to come along to the right and I'm going to run up to here and get this thing here. 1 to max energy shield per 12 evasion on your body armor. I'm going to talk about gear soon, but we run a mix of evasion but I've been running, you don't have to run it however you want, right? But I've been running evasion and energy shield. Did that last season. Love it. Doing it again, still love it. That's all that. Now let's talk about gear. So the best way to go over gear is probably going to be to talk about attack first and then defenses. So in terms of attack, let's start with the bow. So on the bow, this is the season of the Deadeye, so everybody wants the best bows, you know, the best bows in the game. So expect to, you know, either have to craft your own or look around a long time to get a really good one that is not really high up and overvalued. So basically, you want to get as much damage as possible. Physical damage, we convert to cold damage. So get as much physical damage as possible. I've got 157%. You could get a lot more. Then you want to get added cold damage. So I'm just going down them one by one. You see the blues here. I'm going down them. Then you want added cold damage. Added lightning damage is good. Added fire damage is good because we have extra bonuses to elemental damage anyway. Then you want to get crit. This build weighs heavy on crit. So you want as much crit damage as you can get. And I'm telling you the best things to get. I have to get so many more upgrades on my build. My build could be so much better if I had better gear. This is really not that good gear. You'll see some pieces are really bad, but yeah, crit everywhere you can get it. And then attack speed is good as well. You can also get plus levels. You can get like +4 levels on here as well to like projectiles or attack, I think it is. Get that if you can get it. Like I say, I don't have it, and the build still clears tier 15s. If you can get it, your build's going to be nutty. Right. Quiver. On the quiver, you want to get, again, damage. Cold damage is the key. Any other damage like fire, lightning, etc. is good because we have good, damage. Extra damage with bow skills is amazing. Levels to projectile skills is really good. I have 2, and I think that's the best you can get. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think 2 levels to projectiles is the best you can get. Attack speed is good, and then any crit chance, crit damage is good. You want as much as you can get. I can't stress that enough. I've got this weird abyssal one where it's like crit to enemies further away, which is pretty cool. You also want to try and get a viscerating. It's on the build guide. Visceral, I think it's called, quiver. And that has at the top line where mine says, pierce, it will have crit. It'll have extra crit. So you want to get that bow, that quiver if you can get it. Like I say, my gear's still not perfect. Try and get that. That's going to be your main sources of damage. Then I would suggest on your gloves, try and get more damage. Again, I've got cold damage on my gloves. So try and get some damage on your gloves. I've got some physical damage on my gloves as well. Try and get that. And crit damage bonus. Again, everywhere you can get it. Then that's your damage. And then rings. Rings have got damage on them as well. So again, physical damage, cold damage, amazing on this one as well. I've got cold damage on this one. So anyway you can get it. That's pretty much all your sources of damage, I think. Bow, quiver, gloves, rings. Now let's talk defensives. So, and +2 to projectile skills on your amulet. You can get that as well. Very, very cheap with some crit as well. You're not going to be, they're not that hard to get if you're, if you're not playing, if you're playing on the normal league, not that hard to get. Onto defenses. Chest piece. You want to be getting a mixture of evasion and energy shield. That's, well, you can do what you want, but I like to get a mixture of evasion and energy shield. The reason is if you get hit, first it hits your energy shield and then that comes back. So you get hit and then you get another attack come in, you can evade it. So it's kind of like a double layer and the energy shield just keeps coming back. And the evasion, it's a really nice setup. I really, really like it. So I've gone for the sleep jacket, which gives a 1000 energy shield and then 400 evasion, which is really nice. You can chuck iron runes in to boost those. The other place to get good mix of the evasion energy shield is the helmet. You can get one again on the helmet with a good mix, and you can throw in the iron runes to boost that. You don't get as much on the other things like your gloves and boots. You don't get as much. So they're the 2 I'd really try and get the highest possible. The next thing you want to focus on is your resistances. You want to get as close to the cap as you can get, the cap being 75. I'm, like you said, my gear sucks. I still need to get a lot of upgrades here. So I'm 70 fire, 50 cold, 50 lightning, and terrible chaos. So I got a long way to go still, but the best places to get those are the belt, because there's not as much other good stuff on the belt. The boots are quite good as well. The rings are really good. If you can get prismatic rings, they have % to all elemental resistances. So if you had 2 of those, you could, what can that roll to? 10? You could have 20% to all just from your 2 rings, which is really, really nice. And then again, resistances come good on rings as well. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. Yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to say. The gear itself is so obtainable. There's no uniques. There's no really juicy, wild things here. I mean, we're a week into the league, and I put this together mostly just a couple of exalted a piece or crafting it myself with items from the abyssals and stuff. So it's very, very obtainable. To be clear, in tier 15s in a week is... What I'm trying to say is it's a very easy build to get into, and you can progress it yourself into endgame content. What I do want to do is make a separate, on the build guide, a separate tab to be more tailored toward bossing. And I'm working on that now to make it really, really good on bossing. Right now we can defeat the bosses, but let's defeat them faster, So I do want to make and it will just be a few small changes to the gems really. But yeah, I'm going to work on a update to that. So subscribe if you want to see that. Let me know if you have any questions, but that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.